It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Canada Paralympian sled hockey player Billy Bridges. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in competing in the sport of sled hockey?
Yeah, I didn't really know anything about it, and I didn't know a lot about disabled sports growing up. In my area, I wasn't really prolific, and obviously we didn't have YouTube and all these resources that we have today. And so I actually used my crutches to skateboard. And I was skateboarding downtown one day, and this old lady started running after me, and I thought she was gonna give me crap and get me in trouble for skateboarding downtown, but it was actually the grandmother of my best friend Brad Bowden now, and she ran after me and asked me what disabled sports I play, and I had no idea what she was talking about. And she said, well, my grandson over there, she points across the street, he plays wheelchair basketball and sledge hockey, and you're gonna go play with them. And I was like, okay. Like, I don't know how I'd get there or anything. And she's like, no worries, we'll come pick you up, we'll drive you there. And Colleen was such a saint, and she would do all the work and make sure that I got there. And I started playing wheelchair basketball because that was kind of the most popular sport for disabled people in Canada at the time. And luckily, our coach at the time, Jeff Penner, introduced us to all different types of sports, and his major thing was just to have active and independent disabled people. And luckily he showed us hockey, because as Canadians, I just wanted to get to the NHL, and I didn't see myself as any different, and I didn't really understand why I couldn't be there. And then when I first found sledge hockey and took that first push on the ice, I fell in love right away.
What was that like first getting started in wheelchair basketball and then switching sports to sled hockey?
Yeah, I mean, wheelchair basketball was great because really all you needed was a wheelchair, and the team provided it. So I learned a lot about, organized sport through that, because I didn't really have an opportunity to be in any organized sports growing up. And wheelchair basketball is so good at teaching you athleticism and agility and precision and everything that you need, really, to play any sport in the world. So it was definitely an awesome starting point, and I was able to make the national team for wheelchair basketball, and I went and played professional wheelchair basketball in Spain, and had such incredible opportunities because of that. And when I first found sledge hockey, I instantly fell in love with it because it was hockey, and I'm Canadian and I have ice in my blood. And I was able to play on the national team for both those teams for a few years, and it was just it was just a lot of fun. I just loved it.
How was that experience like, as you said, playing professional wheelchair basketball overseas?
I mean, it was incredible. It was an opportunity that I didn't really think would ever come my way, and I got a random email that I thought was just junk mail because it was from a Spanish account, and once I read it over and they were offering me a spot on the team, I was absolutely floored, and I didn't really know what to expect. But then I showed up there, and they provided a car and a condo, and we had practice times every single day, and we had a team bus with a wheelchair guy on the side of it. And half the bus was memory foam mattress, so we all just got to lounge out and travel Spain and France and play all these games. And it's just such an awesome experience.
What was your experience like being a dual athlete and being able to compete on the national level of Team Canada in wheelchair basketball and sled hockey?
Um, I mean, it was definitely something that would be a lot harder to do now. Now there's a lot more demands for each individual sport that require, so much more time. But back then, our training basically consisted of just like staying active and playing the sport that you're playing, and it wasn't necessarily all these scheduled workouts in the gym and cardio and physio and all this extracurricular that we have to do now to be able to keep up with the game. And so it was definitely easier to do back then, and it was just a lot of fun because I always felt like playing other sports helps you in your chosen sport so much more than a lot of other things that you can do in life. And that cross training, I think, helped me excel in hockey specifically, for sure. And being a part of that wheelchair basketball program back then was definitely high performance, so it taught me a lot.
What was that transition like from just playing sled hockey and not playing for a wheelchair basketball team for Team Canada too?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. I went to Spain in 2007 in hopes to try to get to the Beijing Paralympics in 2008, and I ended up not making that team and cracking the squad, and it was pretty frustrating because basketball is um, a lot more difficult to make a national team because you have to have certain classifications on your team at once, not like hockey where it's wide open. And so I had to be better than the person who was my class on the basketball team, and he just happened to be the captain of the team and had been there forever, Dave Durapose. And so I knew I wasn't going to beat him for a spot, and so it made the decision kind of easy, but it was tough.
Of course, in '98, what was it like becoming the youngest Canada hockey player to ever play to represent Team Canada in history?
Um, I mean, Brad and I started playing when we were like 10 or 11 years old, and we just played every single day that we could on the outdoor rink and with our team and playing games and on with able-bodied people, and we just played and competed so much that it just seemed like that was the natural progression, which is funny because now I look back at it, and when a 19-year-old makes a team, he seems super young, and I could only imagine what the team felt like having a 14-year-old coming onto the team, and I was a tiny little punk kid too, so I could only imagine. But it just felt natural for me at the time, and obviously that's pretty naive to look back and think about, but that's really how it felt.
Of course, what was that experience like? Obviously, as you said, you were 14 when you first made the national team, and some of your other teammates were way older.
Yeah, I mean, I had to have one of the teammates become a legal parent guardian person for me as we traveled to Spain and Germany and all these places, and so a lot of these guys that I looked up to were, becoming teammates, and it was pretty strange, but luckily my ability from playing with Brad brought Brad and I to that level, and we never felt like we didn't belong, that's for sure.
What was that feeling like getting to put on your first Team Canada Maple Leaf flag hockey jersey?
Yeah, when I first made the team, we actually weren't with Hockey Canada. So my first jersey was number 55, and it was like a random um, like hockey stick with a couple white maple leaves above it, and like it was so funny, but like it was still awesome. And I remember going to the World Championships in 2000, and we got to wear our first like Hockey Canada jerseys, and I was given the number 18 because I was the last one to be able to pick because I was the youngest new kid, so I didn't get the number that I wanted, but obviously it stuck. But putting on that jersey was pretty incredible, and going out to play at the World Championships with 10,000 people watching was pretty special.
Of course, when you did get that Hockey Canada jersey, what was that feeling like getting to put on that jersey that also your counterparts in the able body also got to put on?
Yeah, certainly. It made us feel like we belonged, and 4 years later in 2004, Hockey Canada took us over, and that was definitely pretty special to be a part of that whole community. And when we won the gold in 2006, we got to go to a ring gala and get our championship rings, and that's how I ended up meeting my wife, who had just won the Olympics, on the women's hockey team, and it was just special to be a part of the whole like Hockey Canada family. It was pretty cool.
What was that feeling like getting to make your first Paralympic team to go to Italy in 2006?
Well, my first one was 2002, and by then I had made the team about 3 months after the Nagano games, and instantly right away I wished that I could have been a part of that. But obviously I was even younger, and that would have been crazy. But getting to go to Salt Lake City and seeing the hype and the opening ceremonies with 70,000 people there, it was so incredible. And I never would have believed that it was like that, because it was a sport that I'd never even heard of 6 years before that, and it was pretty cool.
Of course, getting to go to the Paralympics in Italy, what was that like? Obviously, receiving a gold medal.
Yeah, I mean, it happened so early in my career that I definitely didn't appreciate it as much as I should, and obviously knowing now that it's been close to 20 years later and we haven't received another one, I definitely would have appreciated it more. But it was pretty special to be able to do it with a few of the guys that had been on the team since Lillehammer, and had fought so hard to try to get that medal. And of course, coming off Salt Lake City, where we lost the bronze medal game, was devastating. So I remember that semifinal game against Germany. I was so pumped to be able to just work and try as hard as I could to win that game, knowing that if you win that semifinal game, you're guaranteed a Paralympic medal. And that was our feeling going into that gold medal game. At least it was for me. It was just like we already have that Paralympic medal that we missed in Salt Lake City, and the rest is just gravy. So I think it made us a lot more relaxed.
Of course, when you did get that medal, what was that feeling like putting it around your neck and knowing that all of your hard work paid off for that games?
Yeah, I mean, certainly it was a euphoric feeling that still gives you goosebumps when you look back and think about it. And sitting there on the blue line, and Sir Philip Craven put that medal around my neck, which was pretty special. He was, obviously a complete icon. So it was pretty special, just to be able to do that with that group of guys, and knowing now that we all went separate directions after, and teams change, and it was just such a special feeling to be able to sing the anthem on the blue line at the Paralympic Games. It's a feeling that's second to none.
Of course, how did your first two Paralympics help you to making the team in 2010 to go to your third Paralympics?
Well, by Vancouver, I'd already been the assistant captain on the team, and had solidified my spot. And that lead up to Vancouver, I was still pretty young, and didn't really understand the gravity of my position on the team. And to be honest, I had a lot of maturing to do that I didn't realize at the time, and I really wish I did. I was still in the mentality of like, oh, this is my ability, and I can do whatever I want, and I'll be successful. And maybe that was the case at times, but it didn't help the team be successful. And coming out of the Vancouver games without a medal was pretty painful.
Of course, after the 2010 Paralympics, what were some of the things that you were preparing for to make your next Paralympics to go to Beijing? And how was that preparation like?
Yeah, I mean, after Vancouver, we had to set our sights on the next games in Sochi, Russia. And I got home and got a puppy and named it Sochi, so that I could just forget about Vancouver and keep looking ahead, and finally started to embrace the change that I needed to make as an athlete to be, to help my team be successful, and come back from those Paralympic Games with medals, and knowing how important that is.
Of course, what was your experience like competing in Sochi?
I mean, it was really cool. The Paralympic cluster was the first time that so many of the Paralympic sports, and the opening ceremonies venue, and the torch, and it was all in the cauldron was all in the same spot right beside the village. So it was really cool to be a part of that, and to be able to have that experience with my team. And losing the semifinal was tough, but being able to come back with a medal that was so incredible was pretty cool and definitely made it worth it.
Of course, after Sochi, what was it like preparing for Beijing, and how was Beijing different than your last four?
Um, yeah, I mean the next ones were Pyeongchang in Korea, and after Sochi, we had a massive turnaround where all of our staff was fired essentially, and regrouped, and we didn't even get back together as a team until December. It was pretty strange. Hockey Canada took that loss pretty hard, and we had the gold medal expectations, and not meeting those as a Canadian hockey player is definitely pretty difficult to deal with. And so we had to keep looking forward, and knew that we needed a better result, and that meant changing the way that we do everything. And so we definitely became much better athletes in that quad leading up to Pyeongchang.
Of course, as you talked about that, as a player, what was that like going through that coaching change where all of the coaches were let go and a whole brand new staff came aboard?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly pretty tough. After Sochi, leading into the next games, all of the staff changed, but only one player changed, and so we felt very defensive, having all this new staff come in and tell us what to do, when we felt like we were so close to our ultimate goal, success, that it was tough for us to hear. And I think there was a lot of pushback for a while, but ultimately we embraced the change and the challenge, and met it head on and put the work in.
What was it like going to Beijing, and how was Beijing different than your last few Paralympics?
I mean, Beijing was tough because of the pandemic and not being able to have any family come over or any friends, and the fans were all locals and not really cheering for Canada or cheering for USA, and it made it kind of strange, but it definitely brought the team together, knowing that we're all in this together and alone, and we have to do it for each other, and that was basically our push the entire time. But also losing Russia right before the tournament started, rightfully so, um, made it for a weird tournament where we only played two teams the entire time, and so it was definitely different.
Of course, what was it like, obviously, with fans, having those fans cheering for you and having your friends and family in your last few versus obviously this previous Paralympics that you just competed in?
Um, yeah, I mean, having the friends and family there, is just a support system that you can't really recreate. Like we've always had events where we'd finish our games, and then we'd stop over at the family hotel and say hi to everyone. And all of a sudden we're in Beijing, and we can't even open the window on the bus because we're in like complete total lockdown mode, and like you can't see each other's face the entire time because we got masks on. And but it's first world problems because we still got to compete at the Paralympic Games, and live out our dreams. So at least we still had a chance to do that, but it was definitely different.
What were some of your game day rituals and routines at the Paralympics?
Yeah, I mean, I try to steer away from a lot of rituals and routines, just because I know that in sport, things change all the time, and the timing changes, the way the coaches come in changes, and the ice and the wait times, and everything's always different. So I always just try to keep it loose, and by the time you're at that point, your training has prepared you, for everything, and you shouldn't feel the need to have to get pumped up or do things the exact same way every single time, because we're the high performance athletes. We should be able to deal with anything. And so I just try to keep the room loose and keep myself loose and tell jokes, and just keep it chill. And then when we head out there, that you go into autopilot anyway, and the competition starts, you're ready to go.
How is it like getting to put on your hockey jersey and have the Canada maple leaf flag and the Argonauts symbols on versus obviously just putting it on and having the maple leaf flag?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the Paralympics is a different animal. It's in the NHL, you get every single year you get to try for that Stanley Cup, which is the biggest prize. And in Paralympic hockey, the only prize that really matters is that Paralympic gold. And you wait 4 years for that moment. And when you first show up to your first game, and all the jerseys are hung up, and they're always different every single year too. They're not just the basic Hockey Canada jersey, so it always makes it just super special to be able to put that jersey on and head out there onto the biggest stage where the lights are bright and the ice is perfect, and it's pretty incredible.
What was that feeling like getting to step on the ice at the Paralympics and compete on the Paralympics at the biggest stage?
I mean, certainly, as soon as you push out there, even for your first practice with nobody in the stands, you start to understand the gravity of the situation. And you're in this gigantic, massive arena, and you start to appreciate how big this is. And once it's filled with people and the cameras are on, and you're walking through the media mix zone and doing interviews like your heroes that you watch on TV, it's pretty cool. It's pretty special.
What was that moment for you that you said, Mama, I made it to the Paralympics at the biggest stage?
Yeah, it was. We received our Paralympic clothing, I think in like January before Salt Lake City, and they delivered it to the house. And I remember my moms were there, and got to unpack the bag and take everything out, and it was all Roots clothing back then. And it was so special. And that's when I finally started to understand what it meant to my family. And like, it's something that you appreciate, that you don't appreciate until you have a kid, of what it must have been like raising a disabled child, and how difficult it must have been, and what a feeling that must have been for my parents to see me make that massive change in my life, and all of a sudden I'm headed to the Paralympic Games. Like, it must have been pretty cool.
How does it feel to have Paralympian behind your last name and add PLY?
Yeah, that's something that they just added there. And I think it's pretty cool. It's something that you can show for the rest of your life, of the efforts that you've made. And especially the athletes that don't necessarily have those Paralympic medals, but have had the exact same experience that I have, and the exact same time commitments, and demanding workouts and routines, and all the sacrifice that we make. It's worth it to have something like that, to be able to represent the efforts that you've made in your life.
What is it like, obviously, getting to meet your fans and having them ask for your autographs and photos with you?
Oh, it's so special. It never gets old. Like, when I was a kid, I was always just trying to get Al McGinnis's autograph, or like some NHLer. And it's so special now to see the level of coverage that we have, that now little sledge hockey players can watch almost all of our games, and understand the level that they have to get to be able to get there, and appreciate what those players are doing on the ice. When we're watching the NHL right now, you see what like McDavid does with the puck, and how incredible that is. In the World Juniors right now with Connor Bedard and what he's doing, and they're gaining all these fans. And now you get a chance to watch the Paralympics and see what Tyler McGregor's doing, see what Declan Farmer is doing, and just know how special that is. And to have a sledge hockey player, or even not, be able to recognize you, and appreciate you, and want a piece of you, it's a pretty cool feeling.
Of course, who are some of the people that you look up to in the Canada hockey world, and how do you implement your game after those NHL players?
Yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, I wanted to have a heavy slap shot like Al McGinnis, and be able to pick corners like Ray Bourque, and also be able to take one-timers and lay the body like Brett Hall. Like, I don't know, I just always tried to, I idolized those players in the NHL, and tried to match my game around that. And put my efforts in as a kid to start putting holes in the garage, and take those 1,000 shots a day, knowing that it's all going to pay off. And then when I made the team, there's guys like Dean Melway and Lou Mulvihill and Harvey Lord and all these guys that I totally looked up to, and it was so special to be able to play with them. And for the last 5 years too, like a lot of my heroes were just my younger teammates, and seeing what they can do with the puck, and see how fast Liam Hickey is, and what Tyler McGregor can do. And I've always tried to take what other people do well and practice that myself and make it a part of my game as well.
What was the feeling like for you to get to put on your Paralympic ring and get to see the Argonaut symbols and the Canada maple leaf flag on them?
Yeah, I mean, after Torino, when we won, that was the first time that we received a championship ring. Even though we had won in 2000, we weren't a part of Hockey Canada yet, and we didn't think about doing it. I don't know why, but it was pretty cool. We were all in tuxedos and lined up in front of you know, the biggest hockey heroes in Canada were in the room. And I was raised by lesbian moms, so my favorite hockey team in the world was the women's hockey team. And that, getting to meet all of them, and the superstars that they are, like Haley Wickenheiser and Jana Hefford, and of course I got to meet my wife Sammy Jo Small there. And it was so special that it obviously changed my life forever.
What has it been like, obviously, getting to represent Team Canada and go to 4 Paralympics?
6. Yeah, I mean, I never would have imagined that I would have been to 6 Paralympic Games growing up as a kid, but it just kind of became a part of my life. And after winning that first gold medal in Torino, I became addicted to that feeling, and I wanted to just keep winning, and I wanted my teammates around me to have that feeling of winning as well.
What would you tell your younger self now, looking back on your career, going to 6 Paralympics?
Uh, Work. Don't be afraid of the work. Like, no matter how good you think you are, you can always be that much better. And getting better is not just for yourself, it's for the team. And if I could have put in that work that I put in now when I was a kid, I could have helped my team win a lot more.
What has it been like, obviously, competing with some of your teammates, and who have been some of the most influential teammates that you've competed with?
Well, certainly Brad Bowden. I mean, I made the team with him, or he made it a year after me, I think. And then we were best man at each other's wedding, and we were obviously just best friends, and be able to have that relationship on the ice and in life was pretty special, and still is. And that's the best part about sport is it gives you opportunity that you wouldn't have in other places in life, to be able to make those connections and have that family.
How has it been like, obviously, getting to live out 6 Paralympic dreams?
Yeah, I mean, each dream is different, and each time is 4 years in between. So it's like you've grown so much. When I made the team, I was 14, and most of my teammates in Beijing weren't even alive in 1998. So it's been quite the experience. And obviously 7 years ago, having a child while still being on the team too was a game changer, and a motivation changer for sure.
What are some of your future plans in the sport of sled hockey?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And I'm off for a year for due to an injury, so we'll see if I can make it back as a player. And if not, obviously I have the experience to be a part of the game in most facets if I want it. So but I mean, I'm a competitive athletic person, so I see myself trying to I want to make the summer games for throwing seated javelin and discus. I love doing that. And I love playing wheelchair tennis, and I just started picking up wheelchair curling. And let's see how far sport can take me.
Of course, what has the transition been like from going from being a sled hockey player to getting into these other sports, as you said, javel, track and field, and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's something that I've always done while I've been a part of the team as well, because I still feel like any experience you can get cross training in different sports, it will always make you a better athlete. And so I think it's made that transition um, from this hiatus this year into other stuff a lot easier. But of course, it still makes me want to go back and try to help my team win.
What advice would you give those future people that are looking to get into competing on the hockey level?
Yeah, I mean, any disabled sport, like you just you need to be not afraid to be uncomfortable. Adaptive sport is just that. You have to adapt, and it's adapting to you. And once you embrace it and try it, you start appreciating that it is a sport that's made for so many disabilities, and that there's a Paralympic sport out there for everybody. And but it's all scary to start, and it's uncomfortable to start, but that's the most important step is getting out there and Googling where your local Paralympic sport organization is, and what sports are available, and getting out there and doing it, because it changes your life.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to represent a national team, whether it's Team USA or Canada?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Once you get into those sports and you find out what's your niche and what you're good at and what you like doing, it's just about doing the research, watching YouTube videos and hiring coaches and just trying to do whatever it takes to take that next step. And the first step is hard work, no matter what you're going to get into, whether it's school or university or like disabled sport at the Paralympic level. It's hard work, and so don't shy away from that and attack it.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to go to the Paralympics for the first time or even multiple times like you have?
Yeah, it's just trying to make yourself better every day than you were the day before, and trying to figure out how that is. Once you get to the highest level, the rate of improvement obviously drops drastically, and that can be frustrating. But just appreciating that 1% that you can gain every day, and what it takes to do it.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
Yeah, my Instagram and Twitter is Billy Bridges 18. Yeah, so reach out to me there.
Thank you again, Billy Bridges, for your interview, and best of luck in your future in the sport of sled hockey representing the Canada Paralympics.
Thanks so much for having me.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Billy Bridges, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thanks.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.